What's up, everybody? Welcome to our Bottleneck hyper-casual gaming. Today's topic is highly anticipated and it aroused great interest. We see it by the number of registered attendees. My name is Denis Romas. I am senior game designer here at Innovex. This evening, I will be your host and moderator. A couple of words about myself. I have about 9 years of practical experience in game design, including hyper-casual games, of course. I have a background in the advertising agency, project management. Previously worked at Gameloft as a lead game designer. I had the pleasure to participate in developments of the mobile 3D action games, runners, open world adventures, and even base building strategies. Please join me in welcoming our speakers. Mark Rechin, publishing manager at Supersonic Studios. Rotem Elder, senior publishing manager at Crazy Labs. And Konstantina Karega, head of publishing and Boombeats.
Hi guys.
Hi guys. Let me provide you a brief meeting agenda. Every speaker will have the opportunity to share their own knowledge regarding the hyper-casual topic they feel the most interesting. At the end of every speech, we will have a question and answer section. The word for our attendees, please do not hesitate to ask questions in the live chat. I'd like to thank everybody for coming today, and let's begin. Allow me to introduce our first speaker, Mark Rechin. He's a publisher and manager at Supersonic Studios. Before joining Supersonic, Mark was working as peace and exchange manager and ad monetization strategy for a wide range of publishers, including PixArt, Say Games, and CBS. He was previously a diplomat in the Foreign Service, working as an Israeli vice consul in New York. Please, Mark, it's your word now.
Hey guys, first of all, thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here. Great, thank you for having me here. All right, shall we move to the presentation, right?
Yeah, sure.
Cool, awesome. So I'll share my screen, give me a second. Hopefully I'll share the right one. Hold on. Can you see it?
Yeah. Perfectly.
Cool, awesome. So my part, as we focusing on the bottlenecks in the hyper-casual games, all right, I'll be talking about the testing phase, all right, and that will be the focus of my presentation here. First off, about Supersonic, all right. So Supersonic is a publishing and in-house development studio. Basically, we have all the required stuff, entities, activities that needed for publishing. All right, we do all the departments. We do have all the units assisting in publishing, monetization, and growth. Everything is in house. As I said, we have been founded in January 2020. Actually, you can see here the first picture of the very first Sonics. All right. Actually, a few weeks afterwards, our first game has been published. All right, that was our last year, the first year of ours. We are an independent company owned by our source, biggest SDK network, and we are actually located in Tel Aviv. It's our headquarters here. All right, we are spread around 5 countries. For now, all right, we have offices in Portugal, in Kiev, in Belarus, and actually we are 85 employees, and the rise and the growth of our company is pretty exciting, and hopefully we will be growing this year as well. Go to our website and check for the new openings. This year was a special year for us. It was the first year of ours, and this year we launched 19 games, global launched 90 games which actually saw great success. We really proud of our achievement here, especially considering the fact that 14 of these games reached top 10 in the stores. I think as well, like one of the recent analysis of Uptopia, if I'm not mistaken, ranked Joint Clash as the ninth most downloaded game in 2020, which is super impressive for a company existing for 1 year. That's for Supersonic, and let's move for the practical presentation. So I'm going to talk about the MVP to publishing, about the process, about the funnel. I'll do it quick, and hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions later on. So let's take a look on this funnel. This funnel actually represents the way how we see publishing, right? And every section here is reflecting specific phase in the publishing, while the publishing first of all starts from idea to testing, right? We have the phase of generating ideas, turn them into MVP, testing them, and most probably failing and going back to the idea, another test, another game, and that will be something that will be repeating itself. But one day you will get to some specific APIs, to some specific marketability achievement that will allow us to move forward to iteration. We are super sensitive in taking studios into iteration. We're trying to, first of all, to see and to analyze if there is a marketability, if there is a reason, if there is a point to move to iteration, to spend studios' time. As for that, we kind of setting KPIs that you want to see, yet the CPI is not hard benchmark, all right? So basically we know that CPI below 35 cents will showing us there's some appealing, there's some marketability of the game, but definitely there are games with 40 cents CPI which show marketability and interest as well. So basically the benchmark is not hard yet. We're trying to filter as many prototypes as possible here, just not to take the studio to the iteration, to the time spending. From the iteration, we will move to soft launch. That could take a while, all right? So basically that could be a really long process. I mean, several weeks, all right? At that stage, we're trying to polish the game, trying to bring its metrics and its in-game performance to the best shape, right? We're basically trying to create a deep, with a lot of content game that will be able to handle monetization, I mean ads into it, all right? So basically we have a sort of KPIs that we believe that shows, that reflects potential, right? The KPIs as 40 cents, retention day 140, day 7, 10%, playtime 600 seconds, yet is always about the is always about the marketability of the game, right? It's always about how the game will be able to scale, right? How the game will be able to handle vast volume of users. Is it will be interesting to them. So basically we're looking in a lot of metrics and aspects of the game, right? Before we move to soft launch. And once we move to soft launch, we actually trying to understand how the game perform with ads into it. As far as you know, adding ads to the game drops the retention, it affects the playtime, it affects all the metrics. And basically in that stage, we're trying to stabilize, we're trying to lift up the metrics that has been dropped a bit from the iteration, right? And trying to bring the game, reading this phase, we're trying to bring the game to the place, to the stage where it could be scaled globally, right? Major scale, and could be profitable in that scaling. It's a super important point, as all we do here basically is trying to generate profit. No one wants to work for negative profit, right? And basically all this process comes to analyze game and to try to improve and work on the game on every phase accordingly, right? So basically, if you're talking about idea and test phase, we won't put too much time over there. We want to split our time efficiently. We want to focus on the things that we are doing right now. So basically, if you are thinking of the game right now, we don't want to think how it will perform the level 3 with ads, right? This is not the stage. So every stage with its KPIs, with its need, and the process itself should improve itself. All right. Once we follow the process, we basically get into the metrics of 14 of 19 games, getting to top 10. Basically, the, the, I think the biggest or one of the biggest bottlenecks in this process would be the testing phase, right? The first, the biggest, the big circle over there. So when we talk about ideas, right, we have many of them. We have many ideas. We have many directions. By myself, I can sit in the sofa watching TV, and I have like 3 or 4 games like running like at the same time. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. And it's super important that you have ideas, that you have inspiration, that you imagine games to yourself and thinking how you could make the hyper-casual landscape better. Yet you need to know which of these ideas you will take and extract into MVP, which you will take and you put efforts and time and develop the MVP for testing. We have time; it's a super valuable asset, and we should manage it efficiently. All right. So trying to extract MVP, trying to extract and make a real game from this idea will require us to be guided by some points, right? We developing MVP. MVP as a minimal viable product, in our case, is a game, right? Should be created specifically for the testing, right? So talking about minimal viable product, I'm talking about minimal aspects of this game, right? Minimal characteristic of its game. The game should be minimum in order to create some, to create some interesting ads, all right? So basically, if you have the gameplay, all right, we want to show it, right? If you have like a gameplay of 2 seconds, probably it won't be enough to create an ad. So when we're talking about content to create a campaign, it will be probably come to 5 to 15 levels. So basically, if you have like this range of levels, you probably will have the ability to extract interesting moments and create some interesting ads. Yet, it's really important to understand that your gameplay is the one who defines the marketability of the test. Minimum playable for day one retention, as I said before, we are not aiming to check and analyze Devon 7. So basically, by going and adding content into the game, into your MVP, please limit yourself to day one. So if the player if the average playtime of a user in hyper casual would be 10 minutes, so let's create 10 minutes content, right? We don't need three hours of gameplay. It's really important to try to minimize the goals you are seeking, right? The minimum development, minimum development time. As it say, we don't want to waste a month. We want to do it as fast as possible. That's the goal. Minimum KPIs for the test. As I said before, we don't want to test day 7. We don't want to test play time in day 30. We have specific KPIs, minimal KPIs that we need to follow. And as I can summarizing this all, we have one goal, one aim, right? The MVP need to show the gameplay. That's it. We don't want to show a beautiful gameplay of specific elements like the text in the background, right? So if you have a runner, we show the runner. If you have some puzzle, we show the puzzle, right? It's supposed to be super simple and supposed to be showing only the gameplay without VFX, without special effects in the level 20, etc. Right? Minimalism and simplicity. And what is MVP? Basically, what it should include, right? So I'm talking about minimalism. I'm talking about simplicity, right? Few points that will help you to that will guide you through the process, right? That should be always in your head once you come to develop a game. So key factors and elements in the game would be hold on, would be goal, all right? So basically, I want to clearly show the goal of the game. So if you will take a picture on the right, the screenshot, we will see probably that I'm the ball, I'm going on the platform, going to the target, going to finish, and probably I need to avoid these red obstacles. Clear goal, clear obstacles, and nothing like left to ask, to question, super clear. Perspective, all right? Perspective, aka camera, aka the angle you are shooting your gameplay. You don't want to take, you don't want to take a shoot, you don't want to actually uh, to take a perspective on this game that we see right now from a side, right? So basically, if you go from a side, you won't see the obstacles, right? So the camera and the perspective should always be aligned with the goal. If you have specific goal, you need to show the gameplay, right? You don't want to take it zoom out and see the blue environment of this gameplay, right? By the way, the perspective here is really good, super clear, shows exactly what's up for me as a player. Control should be intuitive, and as far as you know, hyper casual games using one finger, one tap, you should use it efficiently. You should know how you will transform the control to the player, right? So if you take too much time to master the control, to understand how it plays, you have a drag and swipe, and you have like I don't know, tap and hold, and many different variations of control, it will be difficult to master. So simplicity, as I said before, basically as this conference is dealing with the simplicity of hyper casual, simplicity in control as well. It must be simple, intuitive, and easy to master. Juice, every game has a juice. Some games have less juice, some have more. Let's say ASMR games definitely are there providing this juiciness to the player. All right, so let's say we cannot go to test an SMR game which for example, dealing with color, nailing your like coloring your nails. It must be super like it should be in a big quality, in a good quality. And if our game is dealing with juiciness of some action, it should be realized in the best its way, right? Because we are hooking the player, we are hooking the user watching the ad, all right, with this SMR feeling. I crossed over the progression and the meta game because it should be here, it should be somewhere in the bottom of your mind, but it can't lead you in that stage. You cannot think of progression in a meta game. You don't think of skins, you don't think of stores, you don't think of this. You just think of the simplest gameplay. All those should be somewhere in the back of your mind that basically that you probably will know how you could implement it in the future. You not do it in the first stage. Best practices, clear, forgiving, rewarding, as it said, right? So basically clear gameplay, no noise, no, like if you look in the on the screenshot on the right, I don't want to see trees there on the side, right? I don't want to see buildings on the side. It's a super clear, I'm focusing only on the track, only on the obstacles, and that's it. Clear gameplay, forgiving, don't put me like too many obstacles that I will be actually super difficult to avoid. Rewarding, hyper casual is here to give a sense of rewarding, of winning, right? So don't make it hard, make it simple, make it easy to win. Actually, it's a super deep uh, um, part of publishing, and we could speak about it a lot. I think we will go now for your Q&As and trying to elaborate on specific questions of yours. Cool. Sorry. Was it good? Could you hear me? Awesome.
Thank you, Mark, for
you.
interesting insights. And for our guests that are not familiar with hyper-casual genre, could you please provide your interpretation of what is hyper-casual game?
Hyper casual game, right? So many stuff has been said about hyper casual games. I think the most common description for that is simplicity. I called it universality. Hyper casual game basically are highlighting the universality of the game, right? So it's universal gameplay that understandable by everyone, universally understandable. It plays around the globe, like everyone could play that. So universality, right? So basically, the game is simple to understand, simple to play, simple to master, and actually it appeals to all, right? So we have like these like core players, gamers. We talk about games that appealing to all. Dog gamers and the grandma on the sofa home.
Thanks. And also, I would like to ask the questions about our target audience. Who plays hyper-casual games, in your opinion?
So as I said about my grandma in a sofa home, all right. So basically, everyone play these games. I can definitely say that our goal as a publishers is to deliver most universal game to the market, right? We want our game to be played by all. There are some cases that we have more male audience, right? And this could be case in specific games. But as the major goal, as a fundamentality for hyper casual, we always aim to appeal to all, to the kids, to boys, girls, women, men, and of course older people.
It's clear. How long has it been trending for hyper-casual genre? We all believe that it started in 2017, and what supported hyper-casual growth, in your opinion?
Interesting you're saying 2017, because I would say that hyper casual started somewhere around 2000. I would say hyper casual has been there like from the very beginning, right? Like so around like 70s, right? We have this game, how it called, the whole space travel, I think, right?
Yeah.
So it was a hyper casual game. Like it has most of the elements of hyper casual. Yet I think the hyper casual, mobile hyper casual, as we know it, right? I think the first boom was probably Flappy Bird, right? 2013, 13, I think. I think that was actually a kind of like a start of the explosion, which is still going on, right? 2017 was a really, really serious year, as I think we saw some backup, right? Some backup from the world to the hyper casual industry. We saw some acquisition, we saw some investments, right, of hyper casual publishers, and basically, I think 2017 gave to the industry of hyper casual a serious boost, economical boost, right? In terms of what supported the growth, I think it was everything together. So basically, hyper casual gives non-players the ability to play, all right? Hyper casual give developers ability to develop quick games, right? And actually to enjoy quick wins, all right? And hyper casual as well, appealing to the investors and to the finance world, where we can see actually really, really, really high volumes, market caps, right? So basically, whenever you will see a positive trend, like you will see that we are appealing to this group, and all those together basically created like growth of hyper casual, which is, like I say, it's still here.
Thanks. You showed some pipeline for hyper-casual game creation. For our guests that are looking for some kind of insight to establish a framework and design for hyper-casual games, where to look for motivation and inspiration?
It's a great question. I think if you go and listen for webinars and read articles, probably most will say Instagram, TikTok, they'll direct you to the social networks, trying to get inspired by trends, hashtags, challenges, right? It's totally there. It's totally the direction. Yet I think the inspirational aspect is much more wider. All right. So I don't know. So basically, I'm looking for inspiration in everything. So we have these social elements, right? So basically, let's say we have this lockdown around the world. So people missing something, people missing some really practical activities like I don't know, going to hair salon or to nail salon or going whenever, right? So we have the people that missing something, right? This could be one stuff, right? We could go for seasons, right? We could go for some worldwide changes or worldwide popular stuff. Let's say, what can we do? What can we say? Let's say lockdown. I think lockdown was like one of these practical stuff that we could actually give as an example, because people started to miss a lot of stuff, and we as a hyper casual publisher, we want to get there and to fulfill this vacuum. All right. This actually was the rise of the simulations this year. I think that was one of the aspects. Mainly, I think that you should look for inspiration in everything that makes you feel good. If you see something that makes you feel good, like, I don't know, like moving box from place to place, maybe that could be some gameplay, right? If you feel satisfying painting a wall, maybe that's some. You should think of the things that make you feel good, that has like some these juice feelings inside, and extract it to the game. We can see it all over. All hyper casual games, they're actually extraction of some feeling of something bigger.
Thank you. Back to your presentation, you mentioned CTRs and importance for hyper casual genre. CTI tests.
CPI, right.
How dependable are CTI tests in your opinion?
How what?
How dependable the CTI tests?
You mean depend on what? Like depend on...
Like consistency between different platforms, for example, Facebook, as we use it
Totally.
usually.
So basically, yeah. So basically, we see Facebook as a major platform. Facebook is the most global platform, and from our experience, we can see that Facebook most probably will show you the average marketability level of the game, right? Yet we do believe that there are some games, there are some concepts that are going better on other platforms, right? So when we're going to check marketability, Facebook will be definitely the first stop for us. Facebook will be the stop that will allow us to reach most broad audience, it's used by all. But definitely when it comes to the scaling, when it comes to the soft launching, right? When it comes to trying to market the game, definitely different platforms has different strength, and we see that different trends act differently on different platforms, right? So basically, if you have like some trend on TikTok, right? I don't know, some filter, for example. Most probably, if you create a game that based on this filter, all right. So could be that in TikTok the CPI will be lower. Yet it doesn't matter that the profit will be better, right? It doesn't matter that the game will generate better profits. So it's super dedicated work. You need to analyze, you need to understand where you market, where you scale, who is your audience, and you getting understand this through the process. But as an initial testing, CPI tests should be held on Facebook.
Thanks. And another question regarding your presentation. You mentioned that for minimum valuable product, we do not need completed art style or some hard graphics in our game. So
Totally.
have you found that it's best to avoid visual themes at all? Instead, focus on super simple assets to boost readability of the game, simplicity and clarity.
It's a really good question. Recently, we have an analysis here in Supersonic trying to understand how people understand Stickman, how people understand simplicity in the game. And definitely there's different genres, hyper casual. And I believe the different subgenres should use different visualization. So basically, let's say that some games, for example, runners, all right? There is some intuitively, there is some connection between stickman, simplicity, and runner. There is like holistic one package. On the other hand, if you go to simulation, which are dealing with building a building or destroying a building, you cannot use this super simple, super, like neutral gameplay. So when you come to design the art of your game, you need to understand in what atmosphere it will be performed best, right? So runner don't need to have like this, I don't know, like super developed, like environment and buildings. Runners usually need to focus on a specific action on the track, all right? But when you dealing with, like when demolish a building, there is like some feeling that you want to deliver, to broadcast to your player that he actually breaking like the building, for example, right? So that cannot be done in simple way, right? It should be probably a bit more difficult, a bit more detailed. But I'm coming back to the MVPs and how the game should be. The game should show and reflect, like every element in the game should support the gameplay. It's not that if the game is acting like is better to be implementing like realistic environment, right? That you need to put everywhere the trees, right? So you need to be minimalist in everywhere, right? So everything should be aligned with your gameplay and not to distract from it. So the balance is keep the focus on your gameplay and trying to make the environment, doesn't matter if it's neutral or if it's realistic, to try to make it appealing and engage, like supporting your gameplay, right? Not to distracting from it.
Thanks. Another question is about game assets. As we all know, hyper-casual gamers usually play on muted phones. Do you feel that sounds and music are important for hyper-casual games? Maybe it will influence some kind of CPI?
Definitely. So we actually, our motion team, led by our genius motion designer Alex, actually they run some analysis on that, and we found out that almost 10-15% of our ads, for example, are played in this volume. To tell you what is the biggest impact of the volume, like how serious the impact of the volume on the CPI or on the game, it's debatable. We believe that these 10%, all right, for example, who plays with sound, right? If these 10% got a good sound experience, and that could keep them in the game, we should invest in it, right? So basically, not to say that the volume and sound is something that a minor percentage of people playing. I wouldn't say it's super smart. I believe that if you have even the 10% of players playing with sound, you should invest in that. This simple haptic feeling and like something like sound of breaking the bricks, that could be the juice of the game. So using sound, it's not you not like need to hire like Steven Spielberg to write the soundtrack, but definitely need to support your game with sound, definitely.
Thanks. We have another question from our audience. How safe is pitching idea? If a small indie studio pitch an idea with gameplay, is there a possibility that big publishers might reject and use that idea on their own?
I really want to believe that I work in the industry where people respect one each other. And I believe that IP, right? So the studio that coming with you is a game should understand what is the consequences, right? So every publisher has his own rules, has his own legal aspects, and how he treat prototyping, right? We believe that in our perspective, that studio that comes to us with a pitch, right? We respect this pitch, we respect the ownership of this pitch, and if you don't like it, we say thank you. And if you test it and don't like it or didn't see marketability, we say it's yours, thank you, right? We don't think we should somehow to hostage, all right, the idea, or worse than that, to pass it like and try to develop it by ourselves. We want to be clear, clean, publish in house, and I think that should be the goal for all of our colleagues.
Thanks. Another question from our audience. How will the iOS 14 update affect the hyper-casual gaming market? I believe it's regarding the advertising changes.
Exactly. So the IDFA, right, the targeting. So AppsFlyer recently changed the targeting method, right? So basically, if before we are targeting IDFA specific user, so today it will be based on different aspects, right? We believe, as all the industry, we believe it will affect. What will be the volume of the effectiveness, how seriously it will impact the revenues, the downloads, I think no one knows. Definitely it's something that has importance in monetization, all right, clearly. Yet I think the industry is super motivated to find and to overcome this challenge. AppsFlyer is here in Israel, and we have several kind of conversation on that stuff, and everyone in the market trying to find these solutions, trying to see how we could overcome this challenge. In my perspective, I believe that we will have some period of getting used to, but it's not going to last for long, and we will get used to new situation, and we'll find the new techniques, the new ways to bring our games, to monetize them, and to deliver them in the same scale, in the same way.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing your thoughts. And now we will introduce our second speaker this evening, Rotem Elder. Rotem is a senior publishing manager at Crazy Labs. Rotem manages and prioritizes the publishing pipelines of Crazy Labs. He is the publishing manager of the hit games Acrylic Nails, ASMR Slicing, Soap Cutting, Amaze, and more. Rotem helps gaming studios create #1 hyper-casual games and is constantly looking for raw talent, great ideas, and new partners.
Cool. First, thanks for having me. Great talk by Mark, of course. I'll start and present, of course, my presentation. So 1 second, I hope you can all see my screen now, let's say. Cool, I'm guessing you can.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfectly.
Cool, so today we'll talk about the bottlenecks in the industry. And when I'm thinking about talking or starting to talk or creating a talk about bottlenecks, there's a few things that come to mind, right? So when I start looking at the pipeline, like Mark showed before, I'm just looking at the pipeline of a hyper-casual game, I can notice several bottlenecks. There is the marketing, there is the retention, there is competition. There's so many bottlenecks that we can talk about, but today I'll try to focus about the human factor. So I'm sure this happened to you, and I'm going to keep presenting on this screen on the $5 million for you just to grasp it. But I'll talk about something else in the meantime. I'll talk about the human factor. So I'm sure it happened to you before. You started working on an idea. You thought about an idea. You said, okay, that's a cool idea. You started looking at App Annie or the App Store. If there is another game, similar game on the store, and you haven't found anything, you said, okay, I'm onto something. You started working on the gamification. the level, the progression, whatever you did, and you thought to yourself, that's it, that's my hit game. And it happened to all of us. So you started working on a game, you created either a test for CTR or CPI or however you test it yourself or with a publisher, and the test fails. And the team gets demotivated. That's the first thing that happens, because we get our hopes up. We work on a game and the game is like, you know, it's like your baby. You think this is the best one. This is the best game ever made, and there's no way it couldn't be a hit. And this happens to everyone, and it happens to us as well. And this is the biggest demotivator. So please, please don't consider this as a failure. This is just a minor setback on the road to success. Think about the games that you created and the amount of them that you failed, and now multiply it by 10, 100, 200, and this is the amount that of failures that the publishers see. So here in Crazy Labs, we're not just a publisher, we're also a gaming studio, and we create a lot of hyper-casual games. And guess what? We fail, and we fail a lot. And this is what's happening. No matter how experienced you are, or how good of a developer you are, or how good of a game designer you are, you also will fail. And this is something that everyone needs to put in their minds. So when you're looking at the top charts, you're looking at App Annie or on the App Store, or wherever you're looking, all you see is the successes, right? We saw Mark saying that they released 19 games this year. No one said about how many tests they failed or their developers. We released a bunch of games, a lot of games, cool games, everything is a major hit, great. No one's, we're not talking about how many games we failed. We're not talking about how many tests we failed. And we'll take a look in a minute about games that succeeded. And we'll also talk about their failures. So we as a publisher, we have the basic knowledge of what's going to work and what's not going to work, because we have a lot of experience. It's not that we're smarter than anyone, we're just more experienced, right? And we try to communicate it and convey it to our developers. Great, so we have the basic knowledge, but none of us can guarantee that their next game is going to be a hit. If I knew what's going to be a hit, I wouldn't be speaking to you guys. I would be in my den or workplace or wherever I am, just writing code and creating the next hit. But it's not, it doesn't work like this, because I'm not sure on what's going to work and what's not going to work. And that's also what's fun about this industry, in my opinion. And actually, it's also the foundation in the relationship between the publisher and the developer, because we communicate, we teach each other. There's a lot to learn from your publishers, but there's also a lot to learn from the developers. So now we're going to take a look at it from another angle and think to ourselves, how long does it take to make a revenue of $5 million for one game? We're going to see how these 4 tests, and I'm hoping that you can see the right-hand side, because all I can see is myself. Here you go. So we look at how these 4 tests brought success to very talented studios all across the world in a very short period of time. And that also demonstrates the opportunity that we have in hyper-casual. So we're all speaking about bottlenecks, but we can't talk about bottlenecks without giving an energy boost to our developers of the audience. And this is what we're driving. And I think that this is going to boost your energy and motivation. So we'll see how much time it took for these games to reach $5 million in revenue, and how much, of course, versus how much time, prototype, manpower it takes them to get there. So we have 4 games. We released soap cutting, ASMR slicing, tie-dye, and amaze. I'm sure you know all of them. And we'll go one by one. So soap cutting was the longest period of time for us to reach $5 million, and it took only 12 weeks. There are 3 people who's working on it, 3D artist, a game designer, and a developer. That's it. ASMR slicing, 3 people, $5 million revenue in 7 weeks. That was the fastest that we had in 2020. Tie-dye, 5 people working on the game, $5 million in 7.5 weeks. And Amaze, 2 people working on it, 2 people, that's it, $5 million, 8.5 weeks. So great success, everyone, amazing job. But it wasn't their first game. None of the studios that created these games, there are 4 different studios, by the way. Soap cutting was done by Firescore in India. ASMR slicing was done by Tricky Tribe in Slovenia. Tie-dye was done by Furious Avocado in Slovenia, and Amaze was created by Vector Monk in Ukraine. 4 different studios, 4 different development teams, and they had huge success, and it's amazing and it's fun. It's always fun to look at the successes, but we're here to talk about bottlenecks. So soap cutting, it was their 3rd try with us. It's not that far-fetched, right? Soap cutting was an amazing success, of course. It was their 3rd try. They had a boomerang game and a car washing game before that didn't succeed. And to be honest, when we created the car washing game, there weren't any washing games available on the stores at that time. After that, there were so many washing games: power washing, car washing, toy washing, whatever washing game that was available at this time. They all succeeded. Their washing game didn't succeed. It was a bummer. It wasn't a demotivator because these guys were highly motivated. So it was their 3rd try with us after soap cutting, after a few months of live ops, of course, to keep the game profit as much as we can. We started working on other games, and they failed so many times after soap cutting. By the way, after soap cutting, they're the ones who brought us acrylic nails, which was a huge success as well in September. But between, I think it was Christmas last year until September, where they brought us acrylic nails, they failed and failed and failed and failed. And they saw their ideas gone to, they had to kill the prototypes. And some of the ideas they saw after that on the top charts by another studio. And they didn't think to themselves, oh, how come we failed with this game? Are we not good developers? Are we not a good publisher? It could be, but sometimes there are different factors that we can't put the emphasis on. And when they created acrylic nails, I'm sure that a lot of people before that tried to create games of nails. Same goes with ASMR slicing. ASMR slicing is a more interesting subject and a more interesting studio because they tried a lot more before, and they already had 2 games that were on the output test, meaning they passed CPI, they passed retention with 2 games before ASMR slicing, and they failed and failed with both of them. And again, they got a little demotivated. We got a little demotivated. You come so close to releasing a game and eventually you fail twice. So it's a big demotivator, and that's okay. But then when they created ASMR slicing, and it was all great from them. Since then, they're still trying to crack it and create another game. And guess what? Like everyone else, they all fail because of several bottlenecks that we can, of course, talk about. Tie-dye, again, 5 people, 3rd test with us. And tie-dye was also, we tried tie-dye games before. We, in the team, in Crazy Labs, we tried tie-dye games before, and we failed. Why we failed, no one knows, but we try and try again. Animes, don't need to elaborate too much on this game. Was their 3rd test with us. And basically, this is the biggest thing that I can talk about, apart from the bottlenecks, that the human factor here, and do not get demotivated. Do not stop trying, because eventually you don't know where your hit will come from, right? And the ASMR slicing guys, they did 1 cool runner and 1 cool puzzle game. And we thought to ourselves, okay, this is going to be their hit. And eventually they came up with an ASMR game, which, in the level of complexity of development, it doesn't come close to a runner game or a puzzle game. Of course, it has to be super accurate and the execution has to be perfect. And whenever I tell to people who want to create simulation game or ASMR game, the execution has to be perfect. Not something under than perfect, it's not going to work. And even then, we have a lot of other factors that we just don't know why it's working or not. So they did have 2 complex games that came too close to getting released, and eventually we couldn't release them. But the fact that these guys do not give up and they try again and do not get motivated. They get up in the morning after they fail, after they work, I don't know how many weeks on a prototype. They get up in the morning, they throw the game, and they start working on their next game. This is it. I think that now is the time to stop sharing my screen, and we'll take some questions.
There is a common belief that optimal time for hyper-casual game development is something around 2 weeks. In your examples, there are a lot more time for game developers. What made you believe that this game will, in future, make a hit? Is it was CPI, or it was some kind of opinion of the team?
So the examples I said between the 7 and 12 weeks is not of creating the app itself, but rather the time since launch to hit $5 million in revenue. The games themselves, if we're talking about CTR video just to test the CTR, between 5 and 7 working days, that's it. It shouldn't take longer. Then if the CTR is okay, around, let's say, 1 week to create the basic mechanic for CPI test, around 2 to 5 weeks, let's say, depending on the game, to create enough meta game, enough content for retention, and then we go and we test output. So we're working on stages, at least these days. I mean, 2 years ago, it was a different thing. It was a different game. This year, 2021, 2020, we're testing CTR first, or you can test CPI first. It doesn't matter. There's 2 doctrines that people believe in, and we agree to both. So let's say we want to test CTR first, 5 to 7 days to create 30 seconds of a gameplay video. If you want CPI, a little bit more than that, just to create basic mechanic, pass Apple's review, and test for CPI. So you don't need to take so long to create a prototype to get the idea if you're in the right direction or not. If it's just a matter of getting to know where you are in the industry, in the testing, in the benchmarks, to understand if you're in the right direction, great, let's move forward. Or if you're in the wrong direction, bad CPI, bad CTR, kill the game, move to the next one.
Thank you. Regarding these examples you mentioned, they are all somewhat technology heavy. They use some fancy shaders, some fancy stuff like cutting the soap. Do you believe that using third-party shaders and other technologies is a good thing in hyper-casual game development?
It's actually a good question. First, not all of them are super heavy. Amaze is a 2D game. It looks like a 3D game, but it's a 2D game. We had Flip Jump before, Flip Jump Stack, which is kind of a very fun game, not hard to create. Even ASMR slicing is a different game, but yeah. So they use a lot of shaders. The ASMR slicing guys, they use Unity shaders, I think, or some other third-party plugin. Nothing too fancy, nothing too heavy. The games are not heavy to download on your phone, and that's, I think, the best feature of them. So we're trying to make it look nice, but again, hyper-casual games are not casual MMO strategy games. They're not heavy, they're not complex, both in the game itself, controls, mechanics, progression, but also not in their art, right? Sometimes we get ideas and pitches from our developers and we tell them, you know what, tone it down a bit, make it a bit more hyper casual, meaning low poly, simpler art, simpler colors. I don't want to create the next, I always use the example of StarCraft because I'm playing StarCraft, but don't create something that's heavy, that's big, that looks too good to be hyper casual, because otherwise the hyper casual gamers, they won't download it.
Thank you. Let me read some questions from our audience. Do you see any difference between CTR and CPI tests? For example, unsuccessful CTR test showed successful CPI test.
Yeah, so it's a battle that every publisher, every developer, so many opinions, so many people. We believe that there's a strong correlation between CTR and CPI. Why? Because CTR is the click-through rate, right? The percentages between the clicks and impression, and CPI takes to factor also the CPC. So when we're testing CPI, we're also testing CPC. And if there's a strong correlation, we see that there is. Sometimes we will have good CTR tests that fail in the CPI test. Happens. What we do is that we send a benchmark that is screening the very bad games that have no chance to pass CPI. So if you pass CTR, it doesn't mean that you will pass CPI, but if you fail CTR, there's no chance you can pass CPI. So great, we saved a few days on developing the test for CPI.
Another question from audience. How many downloads did they, how many users they acquired to hit the 5 million revenue?
I know that they have a lot. I think that ASMR Slicing was the most downloaded game in May 2020. I think it had 50-something million downloads that month. Amaze wasn't that heavy on amount of download, but they have a higher output. Soap Cutting and Tie-Dye had a lot of downloads. I think 40 million plus their first months. But let's say I don't remember exactly, but let's say a ballpark of around 50 million downloads to reach that sort of revenue.
Another question from audience, more specific game design wise. What would be some suggestions to keep the feedback loop going for players of hyper casual games so that retention would be high?
Good question. Tell me if you know. No, seriously, it's going to sound a bit, cliche, but we want to keep users engaged and show them new things all the time. It's not really the case in hyper casual because you see that the levels, they keep repeating, right? You unlock a few things, you get a special bonus, you get a VIP level. There's all sorts of things to relieve the repetitiveness and maybe relieve the boredom of the users because they're doing the same thing over and over and the levels are very similar. What we do to increase engagement is first unlocks, some things that you unlock by progression or by virtual currency. So you build up, you grind levels in order to get to a certain point. And when you're already hooked and you say, okay, I have to have this new feature unlocked, but it's only on level 100, then you will grind until level 100 maybe. And that's one secret of increasing retention. Mini games, we see it in a lot of games right now. So you have, the level funnel, but in level 10, you have a boss level or a mini game or something that the controls is different than the game itself. So you have maybe a runner with controls, but then you have something completely different, which is tap at the right time, whatever. So it's something that breaks the repetitiveness of the game or the monotonous of the game. And that's how you keep the users, oh, this is something new. I will keep playing it more. Maybe another new thing will come up.
Thank you. Another question. How do you market a hyper casual game? Is it some secret sauce of it? Maybe some kind of advertisement or some kind of interesting art in the screenshots. Maybe some kind of call to actions.
So there's two major things. One is the game itself, the out of the game itself. Of course, we always keep saying it to our developers, and we see it in, let's say you check randomly 10 games in the top charts, 9 of them will have the same, I wouldn't say the same, but similar color palette, meaning happy colors, easy colors, non-saturated colors, things that invite you to play. If a game is very dark, it's a strategy game, it's an MMO game, But if it's bright, it's fun, it's easy, it's it's like summer. It shows you the feeling of summer. That might be a hyper casual game. So that's one in the terms of the marketing. The second one, of course, is the user acquisition, because we all know that hyper casual games rely on heavy user acquisition, right? We don't get 50% organically. It's not the case. It's not Among Us, it's not these games. So the organic lift of the users are very small relatively, so we rely on user acquisition. In the beginning, when we test the game, we just want to check the market pulse. As Mark said, I don't want user acquisition tricks or hacks or anything like that, not real life footage, nothing like that. I want the gameplay to see if the users like the game or not. After I have 10, 20, 50, 80 million downloads, I already advertise the game to a lot of users, and I have a big user base. And the users who are seeing the ads now, they're not my core users. They're the ones who keep getting further away from the game. So we need these tricks and hacks to market the game for them. So we use real life videos, and we use Instagram, and we use all sorts of disgusting videos like we have in acrylic nails. And we have all sorts of stuff to attract the users. But in the beginning, the gameplay needs to be attractive for them. Otherwise, we're just cheating ourselves.
Thank you. Our next question about best practice of hyper-casual games monetization. Is it valuable for hyper-casual games to have some kind of in-app purchase shop, or we just need to focus on the advertising monetization? Banners, interstitial, etc.
So most of the money and the revenue is coming from the ads. That's no secret. And if this question is coming from a developer, a game developer, and the answer is, of course, relating to the game developers, don't think about it. Think about how to create a good, fun game. Let the publishers, we are all publishers, let the publishers worry about monetization. We will, of course, help you with game design. If you really are into in-app purchases, and there are games that have a lot of in-app purchases, we'll help you. Great. But first, create a cool gameplay, a cool MVP. Later on, we'll worry about monetization.
Thank you for sharing your opinion. Let me introduce our third speaker, Konstantina Karega, head of the publishing at Boombit. With a background in economics and passion for media and entertainment, Konstantina has been working in hyper-casual publishing and production for 2 years. He recently joined Boombit as a head of publishing for the hyper-casual division. His work touched the whole publishing department, from the ideas to design to developer relations. Please welcome.
Hey everyone. Oh, sorry. Hey everyone, nice to meet you. Very happy to be here. So I hope the audience and my colleagues will forgive me. Unfortunately, I don't have a presentation today, no actual slides. My attendance was actually determined a bit only a few hours ago. So still very happy to have joined. It's been extremely interesting what you guys have been talking about, Mark and Rotem. So thank you for that. So I think what I will be focusing on again in terms of bottlenecks, and I think it's one of the main topics that's been discussed a lot, and also especially for this panel today, is the one of hyper competition in hyper casual, right? So like so many games being tested, and how CPI and retention is kind of somehow, in some cases at least, suffering from it. So I'll try to give a bit my read on how I see the future in the short midterm for hyper casual, especially for 2021, and I'm happy to discuss with you guys afterwards. So first of all, I mean, there's a big question mark, obviously, in terms of what will happen in 2021, also due to IDFA. So hyper casual is a very new industry with a very young one. So no one really knows what's going to happen from one year to the other. Though looking at the year-to-year growth of the industry in the last years, I think we're all pretty confident that it would keep growing also for this year and probably for a few ones afterwards. Though, as mentioned earlier, for sure, this hyper competition and this basically number of publishers and developers entering the industry is increasing a lot. And we can see, and I think every one of us publishing managers has Obviously, compared to a few years ago, sometimes harder time having very low CPIs or very good retentions. So I think the reason to that obviously is the fact that there are more games on the charts, more games on the stores, more people playing them. And what happens is that there's a lot of competition for the same audience, CPI increases, and people just keep finding new games to play, and hence the retention is usually slightly lower. Because I can just skip to the next one. I open Instagram again, another game is there. So in the end, I end up playing like 5 minutes per game versus a few years ago where I would find my hyper casual game and potentially play it for weeks. Obviously, publishers have been adapting to this, and many publishers have been trying, and developers as well, obviously, trying to build games that get right sometimes below what we need, like right above actually the benchmarks we need to do this, right? So low CPIs, but not necessarily games that bring very good retentions either. So a good thing with that is that you're still able, because it is hyper casual and games have such good scale, to scale the games and go in the charts with incredibly interesting revenues, but slightly less, I would say, on the profit side, right? This still, I would think, serves a lot of publishers because visibility is very good for many reasons. Thinking raising funds, for example, is one of them, attracting new developers to work with, etc. But also it's a lot of data. And as we all know, data is power. Data is a very valuable asset to have. In terms of what's going to happen with this, for sure there's a question. And I think in general, the hyper casual audience is growing year by year. But at the same time, I think the number of people, of publishers and developers might be growing even faster proportionally to the audience. So the question is, how can we, and since that was the question for the bottleneck, how can we kind of come out of this bottleneck of these low CPIs, low retentions? I think that publishers that have been in the industry for a longer time especially will use their knowledge in UA to keep scaling games, while at the same time try to bring knowledge from more casual gaming in order to increase engagement for users. So still, we're going to keep scaling games the hyper casual way, try to attract a lot of users, but afterwards try to engage them for longer. So this for sure is something I think that publishers that have experience or work with also with very experienced studios will be able to do for sure. And that's probably going to be key. So I think that's one of the big focuses of many publishers, and I think you can already see it now in the charts with many more games going slightly closer to casual, will be to keep the hyper casual model while trying to really increase the engagement of users through quality of their games once they are acquired. So I think, Rotem, you were talking about it earlier, how you should be careful about making your game look too high quality in your ads, because that will scare some users. You still want to make people understand that your game does look cheap, because it is cheap in the end, right? It is a free game, and people still need to understand that, I think. But one thing that's going to be, one thing that is interesting though, is once you acquire those users at very low price, you can still engage them through very high quality inside the game. And I think that's going to be a distinctive way of being profitable in 2021 and 2022 for hyper casual games.
Thanks. About somewhat another topic.
Sure.
We all witnessed the success of several titles on the Steam platform that look like hyper-casual games for us, with increased production value. I'm talking about Fall Guys, Among Us, and maybe Unrailed also. At the same time, hyper-casual developers often take inspiration from the big titles. It's not a secret. What do you think about the intersection of design patterns between AAA games, console and PC, and mobile hyper-casual games?
I mean, I think that at the end of the day, some people might not agree that hyper-casual players are gamers per se. But I think that what triggers an interest towards games, whether it's AAA or it's hyper casual, there's a lot in common still. At the end of the day, it has to be fun. It has to give you some level of reward. So there's a lot of things in common. I think the reason why Steam platform games, or also AAA, as you were mentioning, are going more towards hyper casual in some ways, that for sure, I think we're all aware of that. The snackable format of games is increasingly important. Social media platforms like TikTok are growing and growing because the content is just much faster to consume. And that's the reason why a game like Fall Guys is working, right? I can just open my PS4 and play 10 minutes, and I'm going to have my session good, and I can do something else afterwards. So I think that's mainly the reason why AAA is getting so strong in that. While at the same time, I think hyper casual, as I was saying, has a lot in common potentially in what is interesting for a user with a AAA game. At the end of the day, something very relatable, something exciting will bring low CPI nonetheless, whether it is hyper casual or a more or bigger game.
Thank you. Another question. Who's converting best on hyper casual supply? Has hyper casual grown the in-app, in-game ad and currency market?
So I think that in general, I think, yeah, for sure, there is a positive trend towards in-app purchase for hyper casual, also due to, as I was mentioning earlier, the fact that the industry is becoming more experienced, taking more knowledge from casual, also studios coming from casual and midcore, and so we're able now to drive more in-app purchases compared to a few years ago, where it was clearly not the center of attention in terms of monetization for hyper casual. But at the same time, and I was actually reading about this recently, I think that what is really increasing and being interesting in terms of hyper casual players is the tolerance and acceptance players have towards reward videos and interstitial ads in general. So that is actually growing more than in-app purchases. So to the question, is in-app purchase like growing for hyper casual? Yes, but I think that still the main focus in terms of monetization will be mainly rewarded videos for the months to come.
Thank you. Another question. A few years ago, we had the situation that was called in media an indie apocalypse. Mm-hmm. So now we are living the post-apocalypse era. What do you think about rise of the hyper-casual genre? Is this a logical continuation of the accumulated base of skilled game developers? Are we going to face some kind of decline in this genre in the near future? What will bring 2021?
So I think it's first of all, it depends on how you define hyper casual, obviously, and what the boundaries of hyper casual are. I think that there's this name that many people have been using, which is hybrid casual, and that some people would use more for Archero, for example, as being more like ad-based monetization, still very strong on IP type of game that can also go close to more mid-core audience. Though I think that there's for sure going to be space for some hybrid casual games that are more having hyper casual themes, as for example, Archero is already kind of in a medieval fantasy world, which is not necessarily something that is common in hyper casual, though more and more every year. But I think that that's definitely a direction that hyper casual is going to take in the future.
Thank you. That's it. We could start a final question and answer section. And also, guys, you have the opportunity to ask questions each other. Maybe we forgot some kind of interesting topics that you need to mention.
Sure. Maybe I can start. I had a small question written down for Mark. I was wondering, Mark, in terms of MVP, I think it's for sure relevant to focus on D1 since the start, because obviously you will have in your hand the more chances of having a hit game afterwards. I was just wondering, why is it a decision for you guys to focus on that right away rather than maybe focusing only on CPI in the beginning?
So let me clarify that. So basically, when we are testing for the first test, the major metric we're looking at is CPI, but not only. So basically, we set to ourselves CPI as a main KPI that will give us confidence to move forward to iteration, but not only. So if you'll see a CPI of 40 cents, but by some case you will see a retention 45%, it's not that we're gonna say, all right, so it's not saying the KPI. So basically, we set for ourselves KPI as CPI, but we definitely look in other metrics as well. But CPI is the main metric that we are looking at in the first phase.
Makes a lot of sense. Cool, thank you.
Sure, thank you. And actually, I have a question to Rotem. So when we were saying when we were speaking about CTR versus CPI and the conversion between these two types of tests, right? Methodologies, approaches. I want to say to ask is like your games that did you see like most of your games that has been published, did they went through this process of CTR, or that's something that you just given your partners an ability to test CTR, but you didn't see like specific success? Like my question is if CTR practically prove itself, or just something that we will see CTR, CPI, and most probably it will die second after.
Yeah, it's actually a good question because we get that a lot. And let's say 2 years ago when we tested games, we tested ready-made games, right, for CPI and retention. Like maybe some other publishers do it. You guys said you also check the retention while you check the CPI to make sure that you're not rejecting a good game, which is a great strategy, little different than ours, but it's a matter of taste. So we started doing CPI test, only CPI, I think a year and a half ago, let's say, and we started CTR test a little less than a year ago. So we were also cautious about losing good games to that, but also we wanted to prove to ourselves that we can create CTR test, CPI, retention, output, all the process that we're doing, and say to the world, here, there's a case study about it. Acrylic nails, foot clinic, tie-dye, rubber band cutting, scalp people, they all went to the process of CTR, CPI, retention, output. And for, let's say, acrylic nails, which is the best case for low CPI because the CPI was very low, the CTR was like 4 times better than the best CTR test that we've had. And we saw that the CPI initially, the eCPI was less than 2 cents. The CPI was around 3 cents when we first launched it for CPI.
Perfect. Awesome. So actually, as you said, that you probably get a lot of questions in this regard, something that totally is we were being curious about.
Yeah, and I believe that we get a lot of these questions because first, it's new. And second, let's say I'm a developer and I failed the CTR test. In my opinion, it's just a video. Who cares about the CTR? I care about the CPI, right? So as a developer, you try to, I wouldn't say make excuses, but you try to justify that your game might be a hit and that the publisher is wrong, and that's fine. And whichever developer that wants to say, and we have some of these that say, you know what, I don't care about CTR. Let's test CPI because that's what I'm used to and that's what I believe. I would say go ahead. It's fine. I mean, eventually we're doing the CTR test in order to cut back 2-3 days of development. That's it.
Cool. Totally. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Rotem, that makes me wonder actually, do you think, some of the games you were mentioning that went through the whole process, there could be considered as ASMR games? Tell me if it's fine if I call them this way. I'm wondering do you think there's a stronger correlation CTR, CPI for a specific genre of game, or it's in general always the case?
Not the case. I mean, we have 2 games in output test right now, so I can't really say their names, but they are not simulation games. One is a runner, one is more of another kind of game that they're not ASMR. They went through the whole process of CTR, CPI, retention, and now they're at output. But you are right. I mean, there is something about the simulation games that have lower CPI, right? Why? Because soap cutting, let's say, which is the best example, everyone knows what soap cutting is. If you have a game like Joint Clash or another game, which is, I'm seeing it for the first time, I don't know what it is. So maybe I'm watching the video, maybe I'm not. If I see someone cut soap in a game, I know what it is, so I have better chances of getting lower CPI. After than that, retention, the whole thing, that's very difficult. But to get the initial KPIs, the initial CTR and CPI, it's easier with simulation games, and we see that simulation games have lower CPIs than other if executed correctly.
Okay, guys. Any question regarding another topic?
Good.
Maybe
so
some
clear.
kind of pipelines or maybe some interesting insights regarding the management of the studios, of different studios in different parts of the world.
Maybe I'll a bit elaborate on plagiarism, right? So I can't remember who actually spoke before, who mentioned it first. I think it was you, Rotem. But basically, by creating two similar games, like it's too easy to create to inspire, like it's too easy to get too inspired, right? So when we're talking about the prototyping process, actually I'm bringing up this topic here because like seeing like dozens of prototypes a day, I believe that that should be something like as a direction for development. Is something that should be considered really, really seriously once you come and realize your MVP, the idea. It's really easy to use well-known assets, right? Well-known environment, well-known runner, and actually say, hey, I have a new game. You see, this mechanics is actually, it's not stuck in, you know, like it's not stuck in plates, it's stuck in like cubes, and I don't know what. But basically, we always need to go and think of how the user, the end user, like watching the ad, what he sees. So basically, the illusion of getting a low CPI because you have a nice super game, it could be so misleading. Try that as a studio, you should try and go and try to create something new. Like don't go and try to reproduce the game with small change. And actually, we see it kind of a lot recently. And that's one of the things I wanted to actually, like, if the developers out there listen to me, guys, trying to came with your original ideas. Try to develop. If you have this idea that actually you think that's gonna work, like it's your idea, it's your goal, it's your game. Make your game. Like don't try to become someone else. And it's sometimes so sad to see like that such a great mechanic, such great elements getting to waste because they are just vanished among all these well-known environment. So that's one of the topics I wanted to actually mention here.
Yeah, I actually have to agree with that. There's so many games uploaded to the store every day. And as publishers, we see all of them, we play a lot of them. We get pitched so many ideas and that say, you know what, it's like Save the Girl, but with a boy. It's like a maze, but with a square instead of a ball. Great. Maybe it will work. Most chances that it will not, because eventually the users who play these games, they will see an ad for something very similar. They don't need it. They already play these games. And we see that the guys, the people, the developers who brainstorm, they have ideation meetings. They say, let's do a brainstorm meeting every day. We do it in the team. We have, again, an in-house studio, so they do it every day. We do it with the developers as publishers. We brainstorm. We look at different things. as Mark said, you sit on your sofa, and the end of the day, you watch TV, you said, this could be a game, right? Let's do something. And you write to someone, and you write on Skype to one of your developers, hey, I just looked at this, think about 1, 2, 3. And that's how eventually you succeed. You need to innovate. You don't need to create new controls. No one cares about new controls. Of course, it needs to fit. There's tap at the right time, free joystick, tap and hold, all these kind of mechanics and controls. That's fine. We don't say invent the wheel, but we are saying that you should be innovative in your art, gameplay. Bring something new to the table that has never seen before, and believe us, there's a million ideas that could be great. And once you see something on the top chart, you say, how come I didn't think about it? Or how come I didn't succeed with it because I tried it once? There's so many good ideas, and just try to be innovative. That's I think the best case that we can give you as publishers.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah, I agree absolutely as well. I think that it's very important to try to stay market relevant because, of course, with total shots in the dark, it will be difficult. I think 1 out of 100 times you're going to get a 5-cent CPI because you did the most random thing ever, and somehow it triggers users. On the other side, all the other ones will be above $1, right? But I think that's why it's super important to really look at the market, play a lot of games all the time, and really be aware of what's happening. But I think I think that comes back to what you were saying, guys. Instead of trying to be like, okay, I played this game and I don't know, shoes are working well, etc. So I'm going to put shoes in my game. Instead, you should be like, why are shoes working? And this is what is working. It's the reason behind it, right? It's like shoes are working because it is extremely popular and people like to collect them. Okay, what else do people like to collect and is extremely popular? This. So I'm going to put that in my game. So in this way, you're innovating while still working with what is the triggers that work in hypercasual.
Totally.
Thank you. We have run out of questions. If you have something in mind that we should mention definitely on this evening regarding the hyper-casual gaming topic, you have the last opportunity. Guys?
I will back up Rotom again. If you guys not succeeding to get the low CPI on the first test, keep working, don't worry. Keep it positive. It's super, the feelings that Rotem just described before, they're super common to all of you. Like the best studios, the solo beginners feel the same thing. Never stop, and you never should lose the belief in yourself. It's the positivity is, I think it's part of the whole process. You must carry it. You must have it.
That was excellent inspiration for our newbies in industry. And guys, I have to thank you for your time, for your knowledge and sharing your knowledge in our platform. I hope this will be our good tradition. We establish new tradition to sharing knowledge between different studios, different opinions, and different publishers. And I think that our meeting today was productive, very interesting. We heard many insights today, and we have some kind of interesting information to think about. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you much.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.